Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Click R3, number 21. Old enough to drink. Podcast is there. Catch him in the bar. How you doing, Ryan? How's it going? How's it going?
I'm happy you said that because if you didn't say it, I was going to say it. This show can buy beer now.
It can.
In the US.
I mean, nothing's really... Oh, yeah. Hey, back in the day, I feel like when I in high school, college, people were just finding ways to get it anyway. But officially, yes, it can go to the store. And as long as it looks confident enough, they'll be able to buy it. And then even then, they're all excited. You go there, right? You're all excited because you're like, I'm 21 now. I can go there. I can get the ID out for them and show them. And then what happens? You go up there to buy it. They don't even ask for your ID.
It's so depressing. So depressing.
Isn't it? You're supposed to ask for the ID. What are you doing? I could have been doing this last week. It's a big deal right now.
I was planning
for the ID.
I was planning in the mirror all along.
You're right. You're like rehearsing in the mirror. It's the good old days back then, but not great days in terms of some of the stuff Sony's been announcing in terms of their pricing, which I'm sure we'll be discussing, and actually some other pretty good, some good stuff though with their PlayStation Plus, which they did put in. People are looking at as one of the best games of the year out of nowhere that we'll talk about because I actually did play through that game.
Indeed. I'll just say that right now. PS Plus Extra and Premium, the April lineup is now live on PSN. Now, I do want to caveat, John. This is the lowest amount of games we've ever gotten on Extra. It's only 6.
I was going to ask you about that. It seemed a little light.
It's like light on the amount of games, but if we're talking about like quality over quantity, you've got Hogwarts Legacy, Blueprints, Lost Records, Bloom and Rage Tape 2, which that should still be like a day one launch as well. EA Sports PGA Tour, Battlefield 1, and Played Up. Now, the standout here, as you were alluding to, is Blueprints. That was announced during the last state of play we had. It was going to be a day one launch into the service. And out of nowhere, I think for a lot of folks caught off guard, easily one of the best games of the year so far being received.
Yeah. What's it got on Is it still a 92 on Metacritic?
I think 93.
Wow, we're up to 93. Wow, that is that's interesting. Yeah, it's funny they showed it to us in that, as you mentioned, that state of play. I was like, that's okay, I guess it's interesting. I don't know why that's getting the spotlight necessarily, and not being aware of this because apparently people have been early access playing this thing apparently on like Steam, and then it comes out and man, 93 on Metacritic, highest rated game of the year so far, and it's a smaller scale indie style game and everything, but it's I think caught a lot of people off guard, as you mentioned, and hey, it went into PlayStation Plus immediately day one. I don't know if somebody over there was looking into this and they're like, yo, we got to get on this now or what? Because I believe it's also in Game Pass day one. It's one of those titles. Got into both.
Yeah, it didn't. Actually, I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah, it's because that situation where, I mean, years ago, it was like it's going in one or the other. Very rarely would you have one.
They'll both bar the other from going into the other one, typically.
Exactly. Yeah, not here, though. This went into both Game Pass and it went into PlayStation Plus right away, day one. So I maybe the checks were good, I guess. They're like, yeah, this covers everything. We're good to go. And then the reviews come out, and now people are asking themselves, is it worth checking out? I see that. Because I mentioned I had beaten the game. I mentioned it on Twitter X. It's like, yeah, I'm done with the game now, and I'm in this weird in-between phase. When you get a game that you beat, and then there's another game coming out next week or something, or like 2 weeks later, and you're like, what can I get into now that won't necessarily run into that? Because I'm in like this holding period right now, waiting for Claire Obscure and one of the worst kept secrets, Oblivion Remaster is out next week. All of that, both of them are also on the PlayStation 5 and everything, but I'm sitting here waiting. I'm like, do I start something that might go 20 hours and maybe I have to put it down to get to one of those, or do I just hang out and wait and play like a multiplayer game or something?
Right.
It's where I am right now, Ryan. It's tough. It's tough out here, just
you could keep playing Blueprints because you did complete it, but only popped one trophy.
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? Okay, so it took 10 hours. People were asking how long to take. The idea is it is a roguelike puzzle game. I've never played any game like this before. So that's maybe one of the biggest draws for it is you've never really experienced this before.
I remember when they described it, the synopsis they gave was a architectural puzzle roguelite game, which is like the word architectural, I think, is probably what threw people off hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, well, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, so you're drafting rooms. I guess that's where the architectural stuff comes in. Technically, you are building this house as you go, and it's like a grid-based thing. So you pull up the map and you can see it, and you have so many squares left to right and then up and down. And the idea is each room could have one door, two doors, three, like it could have multiple exits or just none at all, and it's a dead end. And every time you go up to a door, it then it rolls, and it gives you a random assortment of 3 different rooms that are in your quote unquote deck that you have. So you kind of already know how many you can pick from. And each one has either benefits or drawbacks. So you might have red rooms that can take away some of your energy. Basically, it's referred to as steps. Every time you go in a room, your step counter goes down 1. And the other one, you can get like green rooms, which can have more benefits, give you items, keys, money. And then all this plays into the idea of getting to a final room 46 is what it's called. And all along the way, there are puzzles that you find. There are secret rooms that you can unlock. And it's a very interesting, different kind of game. There's no combat at all. None. No combat. And it sounds weird to say that. You're like, oh yeah, you should check this game out. It's pretty fun. You don't actually do any combat in it, but it's fun. I think that throws a lot of people off. But you know what's interesting about this one? I did spend a few hours of the 10 hours playing on the PlayStation Portal through cloud streaming, not even through like remote play on the PlayStation 5. It worked really well there because it's a slower paced puzzle game where you're not really like, oh, I have to parry at this right time or I have to dodge. No, it worked great. Image quality was good. And honestly, I don't want to say it felt perfect, like it was native gameplay, but it wasn't necessarily something that was deterring me from just using it that way.
You know, I saw it when it went right into the server blades on the portal directly. And I was like, that might be a good candidate. This looks like the kind of game where, like, I was about to start it, right? And I was like, if I do this, I'm going to put down Rebirth. And I really, really don't want to do that. Even if it is only, say, a 10-hour game, I just don't want to fall out of it. It looks super addicting, though. It looks right up my alley.
Well, there are some people right now are trying to beat it on the first day. I got to day 31, basically a full month into the game, just about, before I got to that last room. And the idea is you just kind of start off with the same thing every time, but there are some permanent upgrades. There's one upgrade, for example, that just gives you more steps when you start. Because there were times where I ran out of steps when I had the last key that I needed and I couldn't get there. I ran out of energy. So they have that. There are ones that like give you more money, and each one of your rooms can also be upgraded. You find these upgrade discs and it might say you get the same room, but it has an extra key in it. Something to that effect. So there is actually a lot that I could still do, but you're right, Ryan, in the sense that I've technically beaten the game. I saw the credits. They show the credits and everything. When I see that, I feel like, okay, I'm at least baseline done. There might be extra content, but I have completed what the developers have set up from start to finish. Then I didn't get a single trophy until the next day when I walked around and picked something up, and it gave me the trophy for technically beating the game. Otherwise, there's another like 13 or 14 trophies, and I do not think this is a good game for trophy hunters. I actually think one of the worst parts about this game is the trophy list. They did a really bad job with it.
It looks like it's probably a pain in the ass. Yeah, the RNG games are never fun. Oh, it has type. Well, they could fix that if they wanted to. Are you sure it's not intentional? Sometimes
I don't think so. I don't think so. It's like they spelled "your" wrong or something. I don't think that's intentional based on what they're trying to tell you in the trophy description. It's not good though. I looked down the trophy list. 0.1%, 0.1%, 0.2%, 0% when I checked last. I think there's one trophy no one's even unlocked yet.
Yeah. So if it's something like that, it would be probably up there as far as like difficulty, probably 8 of 10, 9 of 10, with like that estimated time kind of just being really abnormal.
Yeah. It's not great for trophy progress. So in your case, Ryan, you might want to fire this up on a different account.
Oh, that's what it would be all day, every day.
Yeah,
I ain't got the patience for that shit. You know what? This is kind of an offshoot tangent, but one RNG trophy that I still have like PTSD from to this day is Plants vs. Zombies on PlayStation Vita, where there's a particular mode where it's like a slot machine mode. So you have to like pull a lever, slot machine plays out, and then that's the thing you can plant for that, like the separate garden mini game. And the trophy requires you to get 3 diamonds, not just 3 diamonds. Like there's a 3 diamond on one slot. So 3 diamonds, 3 diamonds, 3 diamonds. And like you have to just, all you have to do is just land that one time. And that's the trophy. That shit, I think was like 10 to 15 hours maybe of
just that one trophy,
just continuously hitting the slot. Cause it's literally, there's just no, you either get it or you don't, right? You're legitimately gambling with your time and sanity. That trophy was so goddamn bad. I remember the thread on this would have been ps3trophies.org at the time. I remember the thread got super long of people just getting so goddamn frustrated with how hard it was to like mathematically get it to pop up, that the studio shipped a patch to make it easier, to where you only needed the single diamonds to unlock the trophy. And I want the record to show, for all the viewers who don't give a flying fuck what I'm saying right now, my trophy timestamp was pre-patch. So I
gotta
did
let them know.
I did get it before. I still have the screenshot of my Vita too, because when I got it, I felt a certain level of ecstasy I probably never felt before in my entire life. So I took a screenshot of it too.
Trophies will do that.
So with that said, anything RNG based typically sucks ass, and it's not fun.
This is a very RNG based game, like all the way around. Some people I see it online. Some people are like, I don't think I'm ever going to beat this game because I can't get the right rooms. Like eventually it will click into place and you'll have that one run where just everything works for you. It happened. It's just, for me, it took 31 days to do it. And also, if you get really annoyed, I'll be honest, look up some of the combinations for the permanent upgrades. Because one of them, I feel like I could have just done it immediately, because you just need the code for the fence outside. And then all of a sudden, boom, you get 20 more steps. It's like, okay, well, that makes things a lot easier. Like every run. So there are permanent upgrades that do just make it easier. And if you were struggling, I would just look up some of the combinations and just make yourself stronger at the beginning of the day.
Well, that's out now. Day one. I had no idea it was on Game Pass. I had no idea.
Good pickup.
Yeah. So it's everywhere, wherever you want to play it. And yeah, like Hogwarts Legacy is the other big one. So that's also extra too. Yeah.
That's a good one. Having those bigger, I'm curious, would people rather have big quote unquote AAA style games, or like a Blue Prince or something that's like top rated game of the year? Or would you have a lot of smaller titles? So like double the amount there, but it's a lot of like AA style games getting thrown in. I'm curious how people feel about that.
Probably depends on who you ask, I mean, that's the appeal to subscription, is being able to try out like 6-7 different things, then settling on one you like, Going into premium though, PS Plus premium, 2 classic games, baby. Just 2. Alone in the Dark 2 for PS1, War of the Monsters PS2. That one is simply a reissue, so that's just a same game, but now on implicit conversions emulator, so you get the save states, rewinds, video presets. That game actually did not even have problems on PS5 through backwards compatibility. That game does run okay. It's just you now get the new emulator. So War of the Monsters.
The platinum trophy in there, Ryan.
Yeah, there's a trophy list for that one too. It's weird. Sometimes they can get the trophy list out there right away. Sometimes they can't. I think there's still a bunch of games that are missing those trophy lists. Like I think all 3 Time Splitters still don't have them, if I'm correct about that. But only 2 games. And I did check to see if they updated the last chance to play section. It's still not live on PSN. I do not like when they do this, because it's kind of a pain in the ass. So we have no idea what's leaving right now.
Oh, yeah. I would do it.
Yeah, hopefully that does show up eventually. Otherwise, you have to manually check every single goddamn game and see what's leaving. So that is not live just yet. But that's what we got going on for PS Plus. Now, speaking of PS Plus, John, bust out your wallet. This story is going to get this story is going to get really expensive. Really expensive. PS Plus pricing is going up April 16th. So by the time you're watching this, it's over. 15 Latin America countries, Southeast Asia, South Korea, Australia, and most recently Canada. PS Plus pricing going up. It's effective right now. I would list off some pricing, but like it's obviously variable pricing, but like in some cases it's gone up like 20, 30 something percent. I know Canada, like when I was just looking at the pricing, premiums up to like $225 something, I think, for a year of premium.
So apparently in Canada, insane. It's June 24th. They're going to raise that one. And
really?
That's what they said here. And they sent an email and they're like, hey, you might want to re-up now ahead of that. So I got to get the FOMO going and get people to join up now.
Yeah, I do know for the all other territories, it should be in effect now. It was like kind of a
Yes,
last minute thing, they just
it
kind of,
was. Yeah,
and this is the Sony move. They send out that PlayStation blog post, and it's just that black image with a PlayStation logo, and oh shit, it's a business update. There's never good news when you see these posts. So
2 a.m.
yeah, on a Sunday, no less, on a Sunday.
Yeah,
So that's effective for, again, Latin America, Southeast Asia, South Korea, Australia. I guess Canada, you do have a grace period. I just assumed it was going to be effective immediately, but it seems
you're
like
right though. The Canada one went up 35 Canadian dollars on the premium side.
yeah, it's a lot. And we'll just go right into the next story, which is PS5 console pricing has also gone up. This is effective now in the EU, Australia, and New Zealand, which Sony says it's due to a challenging economic environment with high inflation and fluctuating exchange rates. So in Europe, the digital edition console is going up to €499, and in the UK, it's £429 sterling. No changes for the disc console. In Australia, the disc PS5 will be $829, digital edition $749. New Zealand, the disc console will be $949, digital edition $859. And to offset this, there's some silver lining here. They did reduce the price of the disc drive in all affected territories. I'm not entirely sure if that's the Band-Aid we're looking for here, but I guess it's an incentive to buy disc drives for these consoles. I don't know. I mean, what can really be said here outside of like everything's getting more expensive and it sucks ass,
Here's my question though. Okay, so some people are looking at this going, they're raising prices in other regions to make up for what's happening in the US when it comes to tariffs.
Yeah.
I get that. Here's the thing though. You see some of these numbers being thrown around for tariffs on China are just insanity. And like in the sense that it makes no actual business sense to ship PlayStation 5s from China to the US at all, which is kind of a problem for Sony because they make like all of their PS5s in China, to my understanding, or almost all of them, like a lot of them.
We don't, as far as I know, there's never been a ratio, but consoles come out of Japan and China.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know what the majority is, but like it's not hard to like find a Japanese manufactured PlayStation 5. So I don't know if we could comfortably say it's 50-50 or 80-20 or whatever the case is. What's so complicated about this conversation is that like nobody knows anything outside of just, I guess, logistically how they could try and navigate it. That's like, I guess what's so complicated, right? Is that obviously there's just no reason why they would ship a console from China to the US right now. Right.
Yeah.
And they're looking for different production lines. They're looking to source parts in different ways that they possibly could to try and protect their margins. And then there's just fulfillment in general, where instead Chinese consoles could go to other territories. So, not to like, I don't know what point you're about to make, but like, it's just, there's so many different things going on right now. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, my point ends up going to, they've raised prices like kind of scattershot around the US right now. Everyone's kind of waiting for that, as you mentioned, the black background, white text blog post to drop at 1 a.m. for the US. Like people are kind of just waiting for that right now. Like, oh, prices for something is going up, whether it's the subscription service, whether it's the games or it's the console, which is what they're seeing right now with the trade stuff back and forth. Now, there was mention that Sony's been stockpiling PlayStation 5s in the US to try to at least give them a bit of a grace period or at least a buffer. My question is, what happens if all this craziness is still going on and they whittle that buffer down to where they go, oh, okay, we got like a month left. What do we do?
Right. That's the other unknown. They were definitely like getting ahead of it. How far ahead, nobody could say. And I that's, that's like the issue too, right? Like the US is clearly a very important market. Like no surprise, they're being very reluctant to raise prices here. I mean, this is like the point I always make, John, is like, yeah, it's a publicly traded big company and they want to make as much money as possible. And yeah, they're greedy and they want, every excuse in the book to raise prices. But it's like, this is the console business. They don't necessarily want to increase the price to the point where it starts impeding on sales. Yeah, right. There's a certain tipping point. They're not going to squeeze the customer that much to the point where like a console stops making sense. They've always meant to be these, plug and play affordable boxes relative to maybe what you could get with a PC, for example. So I'm just not of the mind that like they want to make these things absurdly expensive. You can see there's a reluctance here, but it's just like a ticking time bomb. Like, when is it going to happen here? How much is it going to be? And nobody could say anything because like shit keeps changing so goddamn fast. I mean, did you see too how there was apparently a pause for 90 days,
Yep.
and then there was an exemption for electronics, which was PC and mobile that didn't include consoles, and then like mere hours they're like, no, never mind, that's not actually happening. There's no exemptions. It's like so hard to have these conversations right now because by the time people are listening to this, something different is going to be happening. And I think that's where like everybody is right now as far as like manufacturing and shipping and trying to price their own products. What is also terrible is that you are seeing this global implication. Now they'll say it's what an economic environment, high inflation, fluctuating exchange rates. Everybody's getting hit with this shit one way or another.
Do you think at this point with what we're seeing with Nintendo about to drop at their $80 Mario Kart, you think Sony makes something $80 before the PS6 comes out?
I would hope not. I mean, I'm still in the same mindset of I wouldn't really expect that unless they like have a sort of very big marquee title that can kind of fall back on the language that Nintendo was using. Because that, like Doug Bowser's already commented on this. It's a standard PR answer, but basically explaining like we look at the game, we look at what we've put into it, the kind of resources, and that's the variable pricing we've settled on. So if I had to say something right now, I don't see Sony doing that unless they kind of have that same stance of like we put a lot into Intergalactic.
I was thinking Intergalactic, yeah.
But I don't know if that's the game. You know what I mean? I don't know if they do just wait for the next cycle. Maybe it happens, if only because there's a certain level of confidence that they now have after seeing maybe more publishers do it. Let's say a Take-Two starts doing it. Let's say a Ubisoft title does it. Who knows? It's in 2 years' time, it could be like very different by now.
That's true. Remember all the back and forth and anger online around $70 price tag, and now everyone's like, "Oh, can we go back to the 70, please?" They used to. Let's go back to the 70.
I don't think
people are like wishing for 70 now.
I don't think anybody's saying go back to 70.
But yeah, like people are like in their mind, they're like, "Why can't this just be 70?" Whereas, how many years ago was it like, "Why can't this just be 60? Why is it got to be 70?" So like we're already kind of like baseline 70 at this point.
Dude, I mean, all of this sucks. It really, really blows. Everything's so expensive.
Yep. Everything is very expensive now, and it's just getting more expensive as we go. It's tough out there with this stuff. So that's why the free to play games will probably continue to rule over everything else. Fortnite just gets a little bit stronger every day.
You're making an excellent point. There's that divide, that bigger and bigger divide of these black hole games that are making more and more sense for everybody that want to sink their time into those titles versus buying premium games.
You don't even need PlayStation Plus to play Fortnite.
You do not.
Fire it up and start playing.
Who the hell is going to pay $230 a year for PS Plus Premium when you could just hop in a Zenless Zone Zero or some shit? I don't know.
I'm sorry. It is crazy that we're talking about even like essential and like baseline for all these consoles where you still had to pay to play online, and that's like going up in price. It's so crazy to me with that. The essential or the Xbox core or Nintendo with their like $20 a year thing. I don't know. I feel like we are beyond the idea of paying to play online anymore.
Like it should go away.
I think it should go away. Like we just talked about but Fortnite you don't need it. It's like why? Wait, why do I need it for that? I don't understand.
But the problem though is like it just would like I can't picture any scenario where that happens.
I know what I mean? That's the problem. Somebody would have to do it.
That's like millions and millions of customers, which translates to it's billions of dollars at that point.
It's a lot of money.
It's just how are they going to sort of work around that where it's like, oh, we can drop it because of something else that's going on. There's just like, there's no replacement.
Yeah. No, that is true. That is true. Because people will pay. I mean, the big movers are usually like Call of Duty every year or Madden every year for like the casualized audience. Because even like people on PlayStation who are not big into multiplayer games, they'll still keep it for the library, I guess, that comes out to Essential, because generally pretty good games that go in there. But I don't know. It's just, if for some reason it just feels old, it feels archaic. I get when it first showed up on the scene and people were talking about how cool it was with Xbox Live on the original Xbox, the headset, and you could talk to people. And even then, it took Sony a while to get in. It just feels 2025. It just feels like something from honestly a couple generations ago now.
I think that's partly why they try to do these value ads, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
You're right.
they don't sell Essential on the basis of like, you need it to play online, because that's just bad business. They sell you on the basis of, here's the monthly games, here's your cloud saves, here's all these little perks you get.
Realistically, it'd have to be Microsoft to do it. They started the whole thing. They gotta end it.
I always thought, like, if anybody would do it, like, that would take that leap of faith, it would be them. Just given the sort of circumstance of, like, they just kind of are wild enough to try all these different things and sort of lost lead to bottom out and maybe come out of the other side of it alive,
I think there is something to, especially now, as we're talking about with prices and stuff. I feel like that's a pretty good selling point to a parent, or even just somebody trying to get a system just to play online here and there. Like, oh, you don't have to worry about that annualized subscription if you have this system versus that one. It's just asking for less from you to play online and enjoy your games. It just seems like something to give you at least a somewhat of an advantage, but someone's got to pull the trigger on that and make it happen.
I'd love to think that's going to happen, and we also have Nintendo joining 2025 saying, hey, if you get NSO, you can do voice chat. So,
I mean, they made a big deal when they added a LAN port to the Switch OLED. Look at this. It's an Ethernet port. It's like, great. That was in their trailer. It was a big deal to them.
It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal.
The first time they did it. It's like, oh my gosh.
Look at this Pixar lamp facing you. You can start video chatting too.
God, I remember people hated that with the Xbox One. Got to connect in there.
Oh,
problem. Now they got it dressed up as a piranha plant. Everyone's happy.
You did mention PS Portal earlier. I do want to go into our next story about that. We have a firmware update. Version 5.0 for the PlayStation Portal. They've added the following features to the cloud streaming beta. You can now sort games in the game catalog. You can take gameplay captures while streaming a game. You can give feedback on your cloud streaming experience, and you can also wait your turn to play when the streaming server is full. And you can receive a notification when you're streaming a game and it's about to close due to inactivity, so more or less a little courtesy there. You can also restore the license from the troubleshooting menu in the quick menu. They've added a sound effect for opening and closing the quick menu. And John, they've also improved the system software performance and stability, and they've improved the messages and usability on some screens. We finally have sorting. You can sort games in the game library, or the game catalog, rather. It is kind of it's like a haphazard list of just, tiles, basically. So,
yeah, I do wonder if, so they're obviously doing a lot of updates for this portal. It feels like that should be a strategy for them in the future as they work through it here, because clearly you look at the portal and it's like, I don't want to say a system they just threw together, but it looks like one that I don't want to say didn't have a lot of faith in either. Didn't have like high priority. It's not like they were like, okay, we're going to develop this directly next to the PS5 because it's next big thing. I do, after using it for things like blueprints and occasionally turning it on and just doing some of the streaming stuff, I think there is an avenue there to have a cheaper device like this that could act on its own. So I do hope there's a next generation portal. And this is all like the software updates. Everything's working towards that kind of a launch. And yeah, that means you, me, and many other portal owners are like the beta testers. But I mean, we kind of bought in with the idea of more enthusiast mindset, I guess, since it's a remote play device first, and then it's evolved into this. I kind of like this idea because we're talking about the pricing once again. You imagine if the next generation portal, they go, hey, what if we try to just get this thing to be a little cheaper when it releases? Instead of it's 200, maybe it's 150 when it comes out. And it is something that can stream games and kind of sit alongside of maybe their dedicated handheld. I kind of like that as that lower end of the market sort of a device.
I think that is kind of how it's going to slot in, as it will be that affordable option. And that it's just like, oh, it's an online only device. I don't know if it would drop price though. I would almost think it goes up.
Yeah.
It's like 250 or something. And these companies do it, right? They sort of justify it with like, it is 250 now. It's the only model. Like let's say they discontinue the old one, but they're like, oh, this one's got an OLED screen, 250.
I gotta say though, it is such an easy thing to recommend at $150. Like it's just so easy to do that.
You would think.
To be like, hey, it's $150. It could stream all your stuff. It can remote play if you have a play. Really, that should be the entry point then into the PlayStation 5. Start with that even if you want to. Because then you go, it's cool, I can cloud stream, but like if I get that PlayStation 6 or something, then I can tether from it or whatever. So I don't know, just something kind of cool to think about in the future. There's a future for the Portal, which is cool because I feel like when we all saw it get announced, we're like, that's kind of a fun little experimental thing for a Sony. I see a genuine future for it.
Remember, John, if you buy only a Portal, you need a PlayStation Plus premium membership. Your Portal just became like damn near $400.
Well, hey, that's why they try to get it cheaper, because it is that entry point into even their subscription service. Think about it that way, Sony. Gets people in. I don't even think it needs to have that big of a screen either. They can make one slightly more like portable, even. Portabilize the thing a bit.
No, you can't do that. These games aren't made for small screen sizes. You wouldn't be able to read text. Especially with the occasional streaming artifacts. You need UI elements to sort of scale with the screen. If you're going to make a small screen, that's just not going to work. I hate remote play on like even just the biggest iPhone you can buy. Some games just you can't read anything on.
A little too crowded.
The scaling is just off. It's always like UI elements and subtitles and things like that. Although that update is now live, I am curious if like they're ever going to like give this thing a sort of formal launch, like the cloud streaming on Portal. Or if they just do like what most other companies do and they just like stop using the beta word. They just drop the beta word and it's the same experience and nothing even changed. We do have some new game backgrounds, animated backgrounds for the Welcome Hub. So right now everyone should have access to it, but basically Sony just added more designs for the Welcome Hub. So they're like game specific. You can do Days Gone, Demon Souls, Tsushima, Yote, Ragnarok, things like that. They look pretty cool. You put up a picture. I remember you posted that. It does look pretty cool. You made a great point too. If you want to sort of lean into it a little bit, you can move the widgets out of the way of the key art. So you can sort of display whatever the animation is. Looks really cool.
I mean, it looks good. Yeah, it does look really good. I like the idea though, if you're just kind of idle for it's like 30 seconds, just sitting there looking at it. I wouldn't mind the idea of the widgets and stuff on screen going a little transparent, maybe. Just kind of like almost like how like maybe the screen will kind of fade out a little bit, like dim. Instead, it kind of makes the widgets and stuff on screen transparent, so you can see the background better after like 30 seconds to a minute. I think that'd be a fun idea to have as like a little thing to throw in there for a patch or something. But otherwise, yes, it looks really cool. Ghost Yote is the one I have up, and I think it looks awesome with the leaves kind of falling. So
it is still only for the Welcome Hub.
Kind of weird though, Ryan. This was mentioned online, and I'm curious if this is the case. If you're not connected to the internet, it becomes a still image.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, the thing is, the Welcome Hub is all server side. That's why, like, this is never something where like you see an update happen because everyone's like, I didn't get the update, or you never like see a progress bar. It's not a firmware update. I don't even think it's a system features update, which is kind of a soft update where you have to reboot your console. It's all server side. So if you're not online, like the Welcome Hub's dead. Now some data is cached, and I think that's kind of where it is, because if you've been online long enough to, I think, pull the animated backgrounds, for some godforsaken reason, they only animate when you're online, but you might be able to cache just the still images of them. I think that's my understanding of it.
I don't know if they're like literally streaming the info in for the animation or something.
That'd be weird. I mean, I don't know how they're doing it on the back end, but as far as I know, it's just like server side stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, you've got that. Let's move on to some game news here. We've got The Last of Us Complete is announced. So this was just an update on that rumor we talked about before. So it's both games, $100 or 95 pounds sterling. Available right now on the PlayStation Store. The physical collector's edition is coming July 10th, exclusively on PS Direct for $120 or 109 pounds. Physical edition is a steelbook with 2 discs and includes the comic series and 4 lithographic art prints. Oh boy. I mean, if I look at something like this and I go, yep, that sounds about right. And then you see everybody else and they lose their shit over this. I guess they're not doing themselves any favors considering how many times they have like released the game in some way. But I think a lot of people are assuming this is like a totally new thing. It's like, no, it's just a bundle. It's all it
I mean,
is.
it's all you got the thank you letter from Neil.
You do. You get a thank you letter
for buying the games for the 4th time.
if you are buying the games for the 4th time. The context is they got a very successful TV show that came out, so it's kind of why they're packaging this up. I saw one comment. Well, actually, I saw a lot of people say this. They're like, why even do this? It's like, well, at least they're cheaper. That's why. I mean,
yeah.
Do you want to pay? You want to pay full price for both of them?
But it's the optics, where it's like
it is. It's the optics, but like I don't know, man. John, this stuff's just so it's exhausting. I don't want to have to be the guy that says this shit, but it's like, oh my god, it's just a bundle. Give it a rest.
But you know why it keeps happening?
Because I know.
If they had done the Horizon bundle, it would have been the same thing.
I know, but it's like it's just a repackage, guys. That's all it is. But no, they have to make new key art, make a big deal about it, and people lose their shit over it. It's silly. It's silly. That is out though. That is
you
out
getting
though.
it?
No, I bought.
I thought you were going to say yes.
Well, no. I mean, I do. I got the what do you call it? The WLF edition of Part 2, and I missed that for Part 1, and now that's like super valuable. I think it's a few $100 or something. But I'm done. I got my updated versions. Next up, we have.
How many times did you buy? How many times did we buy the first one? 3 times, right?
Yeah, just be every PlayStation.
About 3 times, right? Every PlayStation 3, PS4, and then the remake.
This is true. Yeah, I'm not hiding it. I'm going to sit here and say I didn't. I did.
I feel like most of us did. Well, I don't know about the remake recently. I was like, otherwise, I feel like most of us did.
Yeah, I mean, if you go from PS4 to 5, there was the upgrade path, so it would have been just $10. Except for the Part 1 remake.
So that's what I was referring to as that. Yeah,
the
remake.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like most of us just. I mean, I bought the remake and played through it again. So I don't know.
Yeah. Next up, Marathon gameplay reveal, John. Marathon. Release date also confirmed as well. So Bungie had a gameplay reveal. Game is coming out September 23rd. A playable closed alpha begins April 23rd. So very soon. You can sign up for that on the official Discord, or at least apply for it. I don't think they're going to let that many people in, but a general recap on the gameplay. It's a squad-based extraction shooter. So you come into the game with like other squad members and you try to find the loot, get out of there alive, your typical PvP experience. Characters have unique abilities, weapons have skill trees, you can collect resources, and that's going to advance all that stuff. And we do know that this will be a paid title, but it won't be $70. That was confirmed by Bungie themselves, responding on Twitter. And they said they'll announce the full details this summer. So this was our big blowout for Marathon, because really all we had was that like cinematic trailer for quite a while. I don't follow Bungie super closely. They're still kind of independent as far as like they're not technically under the SIE umbrella, even though their back-end operations are, pretty much completely absorbed at this point. But I wasn't thinking we were going to see this game ship this year. Was that like known or expected info? Like, was it gonna?
No, we didn't. We didn't know that.
It seems kind of soon. I would have thought maybe next year for this game.
We heard that there was a lot of testing going on behind the scenes. Like some streamers were just discussing it here and there. Like, oh yeah, we've been play testing it for months now. And some were pretty optimistic about it.
Yeah.
But then they did, obviously they showed it, and it's been, I don't know. very back and forth online, is maybe putting it lightly for this thing. The thing that's kind of a shame is I feel like this is just another game, Ryan, that you're just not that interested in.
With me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, that's just by sheer preference, obviously, at that point.
Yeah. Like, I
So,
just keep seeing these live service games and I see it pop up. I'm like, it's probably not. I don't think Ryan's interested in that one. Like, when
I
it
mean,
just comes up,
yeah.
I'm like, it's going to come up with Click R3. And I'm like, well.
No, that's the thing, right? Like personal preference. No, obviously I follow this stuff just to like report on it and just sort of like get a grasp on like business wise, where's Bungie, where's SIE and things like that. So I obviously try to pay attention to it. I mean, I guess what I would say is like, I like the art style. I think it sort of like stands out. I think the issue is, and it's a genuine concern, is like, is there room for this game? I mean, is that
Yeah.
really, especially given that like, oh, it is a paid title. I will always make the point of like, I don't know. It's like it's so easy to like, and this is where everyone's going. Look at Concord, but it's like, well, it's it's so silly to keep pointing that game out when months prior you just had a successful $40 game with Helldivers 2. And so many people came out of the woodwork like appreciating how it's like kind of a lower priced live service S game that has a lot of content bundled in. And it's like that clearly just worked. I mean, is there that much short term memory to where it's like because Concord happened, all of a sudden the Helldivers 2 model doesn't like have a place? I mean, I don't want to conflate them completely. Obviously, I know there's like so many different variables at play here, but I wouldn't, put too much stock on the it costs money thing. If they do it right, I think there's a chance it could resonate with an audience, but like it's just is there an audience? Everybody has this problem right now, right?
Yeah, and the thing with this is they're targeting the extraction shooter genre, and I question if there's enough people there who want to play an extraction shooter to hold this sort of a game up. Because the thing that they've benefited from for Destiny and Destiny 2 is while there are some elements to where you will have a more quote unquote hardcore audience, it's also a very casual game. Like you can jump on there with some friends and go through very low risk kind of things where you don't feel like you've either wasted a lot of time or it's been a net negative for you, that in maybe the 2 hours you can jump on at night to play with some friends, or maybe in an hour, you could run an instance, you could do some of their Crucible stuff. And even if you lose, you still might get stuff. Like they might still, hey, here's a piece of armor. Here, you leveled up. Here's some, I don't know. What's the currency on there? Seems like they just change stuff constantly. I don't know. It's very different, but basically they give you something. Whereas with an extraction shooter, you might log on to play the game, go into the first match, die, lose all of the stuff you had on you, and then you go back after half an hour and you're like, what did I do? What did I do here? What is this? So that is kind of the issue, is how do they make that like kind of that casualized sort of experience to cast that wide net? And I think there are going to be many people who either do try it, maybe in a beta or something like that, and go, you know what, maybe this just isn't me. It's extract shooter's not really it. Or who do buy into it and then stop after the first month because it's that what's the word? When you play a Call of Duty game or a Halo game or just some kind of competitive first person shooter, not the social game, but like the all competitive where you're real serious the whole time, like the sweaty gameplay where it's like all serious, right? Constantly you're gripping the controller, you're like, you don't want to, everything's real close the whole time. Like it's very competitive, very serious.
Like you're locked in.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's like it's like ranked gameplay versus casual. Who cares? I accidentally cooked a grenade too long and it exploded in my hand. Oh well, haha, kind of thing. That's how extract shooters I feel like are going to be constantly. I mean, the competitor is Escape from Tarkov. They have like 50 bullet types or something in that game. They have to account for or something. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I think people hear extraction shooter and they go, The benefit here though is Bungie is very good at the gameplay side. The shooting looked good. Yeah, I think they have that down pat.
Yeah, that's like one of the few things where like I feel like you can, without even playing it, sort of pull that from the gameplay. Like bullets just connect in such a satisfying way. Like it looks like it has that typical Bungie feel. I would assume the gameplay is like very tight and responsive.
It looked like it.
It just seems like maybe the core gameplay element is there like is that is there room for that? Is that what people want to play? I don't know. I would say that here's the thing, right? Even though it's Bungie, I don't think anybody can like sort of walk into well, nothing's guaranteed, but even a Bungie doesn't really have this sort of confidence going into the next game, right? Or trying to ship and get into the space of pulling maybe some people away from these other black hole titles.
Yeah, that's the tough part is why do you stop playing X, Y, or Z game and go play Marathon? The thing is, you might play it, you might leave and go, I'll go check this out for a little bit. Maybe you do leave, maybe you stop playing Escape from Tarkov, just go play this for a little bit. And then after a few weeks, you're like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go back to Tarkov now. Like that's, or I'll go back to Fortnite or whatever, right? That's the thing that's so difficult is these black hole games, these live service games that you're saying are just so entrenched that whenever we see a new challenger for the field, if you will, immediately it's on its back foot or it's at a disadvantage because you have 4 or 5 years of progress with this other game. Do I want to leave this and go over there? Especially if the first game you get into, you die and lose your guns. And you're like, well, all right, I'm going back to Fortnite like immediately, you know? Also, here's my question. I'm curious about this for the extraction shooter fans out there. My issue with the extraction shooter is you can get some really cool guns, right? So you get like, we'll say a nice orange legendary gun that's awesome. But then my mind, I'm like, I never want to use it because if I die with it, I'm gonna lose it. So it's this weird cycle of not really using your cool stuff.
Well, there should be some sort of incentive, and there's got to be something there that reassures you of like using the resources you collect, right? There's got to be.
I don't know how that works.
There's got to be an element there. I mean, I'll admit. I mean, I don't play these games too often. Marathon is likely something I won't play, but from the outside looking in, I guess it's one of those concerning things. But I guess it would be tough to say for certain, like if it's got like no chance. I don't know. It's like so complicated to say. Do we also like do we know I think they said like what they're planning on launching with as far as like the amount of content in the game goes, right?
6 classes, 3 maps.
Right. And that's a fair concern if you're talking about a title that you have to pay for and maybe you benchmark that to established games that clearly are so far ahead in that area. And it's like, oh, that's a problem. That doesn't look very good. And they plan on monetizing it day one, obviously. So it's like you pay for it, and then there's more things you can buy. So that's those are all valid concerns too.
There's 11 different locations in Escape from Tarkov, 10 being released so far. I'm not sure how this is though, because they say 3 maps. I'm wondering if those maps are very large. That's what I'm curious about. Like I'm picturing, of course, when they say 3 maps, I'm like, oh my gosh, like an arena shooter map where it's small. I think they're very large, is the idea. So it's going to depend there. And there's also apparently when you go into these maps, it's not just you against other people. They have AI controlled enemies that wander around. Like, they have like the little grunts basically, as well as the tier above them, which I guess would be almost like elite enemies. And then you do have bosses, and some were mentioning there's instances or dungeons you can wander into and go through a whole PvE sort of section while other teams could also be in there fighting. So it is that PvE setup. And I'm interested to see how all that plays out with these maps and if they have it set up to where you occasionally run across people, but not always. So you can drop in, run what might end up feeling kind of like Destiny-like instances while having that concern at all times that another team could kind of just raid your instance while you're in there and kill you.
Right. Yeah. Like what is the expectation as far as how often you're going to be engaging with other players? And that's like what I would gravitate more towards is that Bungie or that Destiny experience of it's a lot of PvE. And then, God forbid another player pops up. Maybe it's, something you deal with when it happens, but otherwise, it's like because that gameplay they sort of do sell you on the idea of like it's other players. Mm-hmm. You're always competing with them. So Guess it really depends on exactly what the moment to moment experience feels like when you're actually sitting down playing this thing.
Yeah, they got to we got to see this game released. Apparently, there's going to be a closed beta at the end of this month. Is
Yeah,
it going to happen?
23rd, closed
Okay.
alpha.
And then I'm hoping they do an open beta because I will try it. I will hop in. I will see what we're dealing with here. I'll report back. But I'm sorry. I think you have to do one to let people try it.
I would think that would be summer. They said they're going to announce more details this summer. You would think they're probably going to open this thing up like around June or something like that.
You have to at least try to blitz the server, right? For a network test of some kind. Like open it up. Hey, you guys go crazy. Let's make sure these servers are ready for day one.
Doesn't it seem crazy though? It's a stark contrast from like where they were walking into the first Destiny and now. Destiny 1 was a pretty big deal.
There was a lot of hype around that. I remember it. I remember getting it when it dropped, and I was like, "This is it, Bungie's new thing." And I remember when that first came out, it wasn't like amazing, but there was a lot of wonder in front of you. Like, what are they going to do with this? It's this big game that we didn't necessarily at that time have all the live service madness that's been happening now, so it did feel very new. Whereas now it's pretty standard, when you see this stuff pop up. They're not even the first extraction shooter or something. It's kind of been there, done that. Almost feels like trend chasing to a degree, as we've mentioned before with other studios where they show up what feels like a little too late, which is what happened to Concord. I don't really like the Concord comparison to this that much. I feel like it's Bungie trying something else, but really they should have just made Destiny 3.
Oh, you think that would have been the better option?
I think Destiny 3 would have been a better option. But what's odd is that they're still doing Destiny 2 stuff. So they're going to be a studio that's holding up both Destiny 2 and Marathon at the same time. So if they already didn't have time to make Destiny 3, I have no idea how they have it now.
Well, isn't that like another like point of the conversation is some people feeling like there never should have been an Overwatch 2, there never should have been a Destiny 2. They should have just kept expanding the existing games.
Sure.
So it
doesn't necessarily mean they have to call it Destiny 3, though. They call it Destiny something, and that's just their Destiny platform going forward. They're not going to deal with numbers or multiple releases. They just stick with that. They are the Destiny studio.
Well, I mean, they do have that still going. But it's, I mean, this is the question I have is there ever a good moment to do a new game? Not just for like Bungie, just in like a new live service game. Is there ever a good moment for anybody to do these things and try them? Like when was the last one that like, I guess Helldivers 2, but it seems like there's just no room.
You got to have a really good, unique idea. Like you can't show up and say, we can do this better than they can, because it won't necessarily matter. It could be an incredible game, but people are so entrenched in Battle Royale for Fortnite that even if you have a better one, they're going to be like, yeah, but I have so many years already packed in Fortnite. All my friends play Fortnite. I'm just going to play Fortnite. So the reason Helldivers 2 did so well is because I don't know any other game that plays like that.
Yeah,
it's just that.
That's the tough part, finding that new thing.
Yeah, that's what show up with.
That's what Helldivers.
It's Overwatch Lite.
Well, that's what Helldivers 2 was. It felt very new to people. So, yeah, it's about.
And they're rewarded for it.
I just do. I wonder if it ever turns back around. Like, do we ever see like a player drop off on like the established stuff, and there's like this window where somebody can get back in there? You'd think there's got to be some sort of turnover where like Fortnite stops being what Fortnite is, there's now room for somebody to try. Like it's all timing. I almost feel like Concord could have came out early PS4 life cycle, and probably could have been something.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It's all timing.
I think that's what we mentioned about it is it felt like it was a game that should have existed in 2016 or 2017. And it would have been much better off.
Probably. It was just too late.
The only thing I think of, Ryan, with something like a Fortnite, as you mentioned, falling off a bit, is if the generation that's held it up for so long continues to get older and older and older, and eventually just kind of falls out of gaming. That's all it would take. And then the next generation comes up and they're not the ones playing Fortnite. They're doing something else. But then you have to understand that it'll be a new Roblox or something that takes over instead. So while you may be like, okay, cool, let's get something else in here, it's sort of that monkey paw situation of like, yeah, but as that finger curls down, what takes over?
Well, that's what it almost seems like it has to be like an actual generational thing of like, you can't just make something and release it when it's ready. Like you almost have to align this product with a very long-term sort of, we know this thing's out the door and we know there's a new generation of gamers coming in and we're targeting them specifically.
Yeah. I mean, it's just Fortnite. It's so hard to overcome that. It's on everything, runs on a cell phone. It leans into all like the meme cultural stuff with the guest characters, and like the thing I'll give them credit for is they've kept themselves very modern and with
they're very relevant. Yeah.
Audiences, they do a lot of research as to what like the audiences and these set age groups are really looking at right now, and then how do we collaborate with that?
Yeah, I'm no expert, but I didn't see Sabrina Carpenter in that Marathon trailer at all.
See?
Not once.
Missed opportunity.
I don't know. I'm just a guy making points over here. Well, there's Marathon. We'll see how it pans out.
You concerned about Bungie at all?
Concerned? I mean, I guess, because I don't think this game's really in the best spot. I wouldn't like doom it, though. I mean, I think it's going to do better than Concord, obviously, but
I think Bungie's stubborn to a point, and I think that point is Sony being done with that. I think, like, because we've already seen what they've done when they were running a little over there, and they start just cutting workforce, and they're like, no, and Gummy Bears is going to Sony, and people are concerned that Sony might start looking at Bungie like, okay, guys, we're just going to start poaching the talent that we really want and start bringing them within Sony, and then maybe you guys will just be the Destiny 2 studio here for a while until we figure out what to do with you.
I was going to say, I feel like it wouldn't get to the point of closure, but I guess if that's how you're sort of breaking it down, I would say that's not exactly impossible. It's like, unless Destiny also has a huge drop off, that's where Bungie's like in some serious shit. But otherwise, they're still a pretty nowadays well-oiled machine after SI was done with them. So
yeah, I see people bring up a lot of concerns around Bungie after what they just saw with Marathon. Maybe they were hoping there was some other wrinkle or something there, because we heard extraction shooter, but you're like, okay, Bungie's going to do something to bring the extraction shooter into the more modern or casual audience, and it just doesn't seem like they did. So we'll see, though, when it comes out.
Would it be fair to say, not to stay on this topic too long, would it be fair to say that it doesn't matter what game it was or who it was from, it just would have been like kind of hard to have that big moment, that big reveal where people are like genuinely excited?
You mean for anything. Bungie in general, or just anything?
Any live service game?
Any live service game? That is a good question.
Can any live, maybe outside of Grand Theft Auto, can any live service game come out and it's like, oh shit, look at this, boys, we're dropping in?
Maybe if there was a sequel to World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft 2 or something.
I think so.
I'm trying to think of, because I think it has to be. So I think it's difficult to do a live service game if it's a new IP right now, because people are already asking questions and it feels like you're behind the already established franchises. But if it's a live service that's getting an update, a refresh, or a sequel of some kind, especially if it's an older one like World of Warcraft, which is like, feels like it's forever ago, like 20 years ago or something crazy. It's been forever. I think if you had that, maybe you'd have a chance.
Yeah. Valid point. Yeah, it is. We got a small little Death Stranding 2 news item here. I thought this was pretty interesting. They're going to offer a way to skip boss battles. So this was based on a translation from the Hideo Kojima radio show. There's going to be an option for when you fail any of the game's bosses where you can skip it. And instead, if you were to do that, it would play out a visual novel showing you how the battle sequence played out, and then you would get back to the gameplay. So sort of like an accessibility option, I guess you would say. Saw some conversation surrounding this. Seems pretty interesting. I don't think there's a lot of games doing that right now. I heard South of Midnight has something similar to that, but it's kind of
cool.
But
I find South of Midnight very boring.
Did you
I've
get
been
a
playing
lot?
it for a few. I've been playing it for a few hours, and it's just. I feel like when I play it, I can't see myself playing it, but when I play it, I feel like it's just. It's like not like mad at it or happy with it. Just kind of just in the middle. Just like playing it like that. Like there's no emotion at all when I'm playing the game. I'm just watching it happen. With the combat specifically and the gameplay, like the story and cutscene stuff are fine, but for that part, I'm like, I wouldn't mind. I don't care about. We can skip this. Is kind of the thought process. So it's just some parts of that game just aren't very good. I'm sorry.
All right, so John wants to skip all of South of Midnight.
Not all of it. There are parts where I'm like, this feels like kind of a waste of time.
But for Death Stranding 2, there's an option to skip boss battles.
The combat, when I say the combat in South of Midnight is just not interesting at all. Like it's just I feel like you're going through the motions constantly to get to the next story beat or big event where you get an ability or something.
But
in this case, though,
is that in South of Midnight though? Is that an option? Can you skip boss battles or something?
Oh, I haven't tried to do any of that. Some people say you can skip stuff. I assume you hit the pause button and go. I will admit I do have kind of an issue when it comes to the idea of skipping gameplay or content in a game like that or combat. Even if it's there, I do kind of feel like I should do it because it's like part of the game, I guess. I did bring this up though in one of the news shows, and there were people in the comments who are like, "That's cool. You should be able to skip it. It's accessibility and stuff." And then I think about it. I go, it feels strange to me. Maybe it's because we're like old. I don't know, but I think back to the days when we would just beat our head against the wall to get past different elements in like the old 16-bit games when they were just completely unfair at times, but we would do it over and over again. And again, just beat our head against the wall until it happened and we got past it. It seems stranger to me when it's a boss battle, especially with this case.
I would think that this is something you or me or anybody listening to this would never hit that button. It's like, it's there for like everybody else. This is something I hear about a lot, but it's like a lot of these studios, they want people to like see the game all the way through. Like overall completion rate for like most games is so low. So like a studio's just spending all these years and time and money and resources into making a game where like 60-70% of the audience won't see that back half of the game or something. So it's just like breaking down barriers, anything they can do to have somebody like actually sit through the whole thing. So I don't think it really applies to you or me. I would never hit this button.
I just, you know what it is, Ryan? It's because we know if we hit that button, it means the game beat us.
Well, I ain't no bitch.
But that's what we're like. We're like the stubborn gamer, right? We're like, we're not hitting that button.
No, I'm not hitting that button.
It's like the FromSoft stuff where you just keep running face first at a boss over and over again until you finally squeak past it. These things not beating me.
No, I'm doing it. I am doing it. I might not like it. I might not like it, but I'll do it.
I'm a little curious now about this because the boss battles, I feel like in Death Stranding 2 should be somewhat of a spectacle.
They probably will. They probably will be. It's Kojima.
It's interesting that they're like, you just hit a button and skip it. It's cool. It's like, hold on a minute. I thought like, isn't the boss battle somewhat pivotal to the? I know they're going to show us like a visual novel thing.
Well, that's why they're if you can't do it, they like dressed it up in a way where it's like, well, you can see what happened.
I don't know. It seems. I feel like it's something you should experience. But that's me. Maybe there are people out there who are like, John, I'm skipping it.
John, it's not for us.
I know.
It's not. It's for that dad that just got back into games because he wants to see Norman Reedus in this.
I'm sure Death Stranding 2, he was like, I need that one. I'm just now getting back into the games. I went from Mario on
the Super
Nintendo and look at Death Stranding 2.
You never know. It totally happens. There's so many like really cool accessibility options nowadays. Like the auto camera holding thing. I mean, God, that's so tough for people that don't play games, is the camera. Ever see somebody that doesn't play games, play a third person action adventure? It's that miserable.
The right stick messes with them.
It's both sticks. It's like, hey, that's the ground. That's the ground. All right, move it up. Okay, that's the sky. All
It's a
right.
lot of coordination. People don't realize this. That doesn't all
tough.
happen overnight. Doesn't happen overnight. You know, you got to get used to it. It's got to practice for years.
And that's why we have visual novel buttons, John. That's why we have visual novel buttons.
I mean, you could just go to the movies.
Well, if it's Death Stranding, you're not far off from that.
That's true. That's true. DualSense about to fall asleep during those and those cutscenes. All that's going to take.
Shit. I did write this down. We kind of already touched on it. It was just like an update on the tariffs thing and Nintendo Switch 2. Because that was like a big story that broke out. We weren't able to talk about it, but Nintendo postponed pre-orders for the Switch 2 in the US and Canada. Just like kind of a big deal, obviously, because they're a big player that's looking to ship a new console. And so that's actually the comment where I mentioned earlier, Doug Bowser talked about variable pricing and all that. So we did kind of touch on most of that.
It's be very telling just for the industry in general. Like they stop pre-orders in Canada and the US specifically. That should make everyone stop and go, hold on a minute. What does that mean for Sony and Microsoft then? You know, that's something to think about.
Right. That's what was undeniably shocking. The April 2nd, here's that direct. Here's all the info. Here's the pricing. Here's pre-orders. Here's a pre-order date. They were fully committed to opening pre-orders, and then days later had to pull back. And that's how you know it's like there is indeed shit going on, and it could very well hit your other platforms too. Next up, we have a rumor about new info on the PlayStation Portable, the new portable that may play PS5 games. So this comes from Kepler L2 on NeoGAF. And if you recall, this is the original source of the PS5 Pro rumors that were dead accurate as far as what that system was going to be. And they were also one of the first ones to mention Sony is developing 2 next-generation SoCs, SoC meaning system on a chip. So one is for PS6 and the other presumably for a portable PlayStation. So initially, Kepler made a post back in March where people were discussing the performance level of this rumored device. Kepler claims it's a 15-watt SoC on a 3-nanometer process. So pretty much telling people that in the thread, it won't match PS5's performance parameters. Then more recently in the same thread, he answered a few more people and he states that this SoC is specifically designed to run at a very, very low voltage. And the CU count on it is a lot less than 40. It does share a few things with Soundwave, but again, it's a different SoC. And as for the expected performance in layman's terms, he said he's heard that it's estimated around, he said it's hard to estimate considering it's an unreleased GPU microarchitecture, but he estimates personally that's between an Xbox Series S and PS5. And Kepler also claims that tape out is a few months after the PS6 SoC. So the implication there being that the release schedule could be fairly close. And they do say it can run PS5 games, just not at the same resolution or frame rate, and that it's down to a lower memory bandwidth. So that's our most recent update on this this local play portable, which based on tape out, that would mean it's like maybe not too far away from PlayStation 6. I would presume shortly after. And I mean, it's not exactly shocking either to hear that it would play PS5 games. It would have to be a matter of like, those games are going to see patches, more than likely. But I don't know, John, what do you make of this?
I do wonder how close they would try to get it to the PS6 launch. We sure it couldn't possibly be a 2 system or 2 SKU launch instead of the PS5 digital kind of thing they do. Maybe there is just a digital system, which, by the way, this handheld definitely makes me think there's not a disk drive in the next PS5.
Whoa, John.
I know, but
John, chill. There's going to be a disk drive. There's going to be.
Here's the issue with the handheld. It's so because people really want this handheld from Sony. I think people didn't understand if they do the handheld, it's just digital. They're not going to do a cartridge or some kind of SD card looking thing. They're just going to make it probably a digital only device. Why would they bother R&Ding and figure that out when they're already close enough to where they could probably say, hey, it's digital from now on going forward. So that, I mean, with that in mind, though, you would technically be able to, I assume, go between your handheld to your PS6 and back and forth pretty easily. So they have a nice benefit there. But it would be very interesting to see them then technically go back to the handheld after leaving it. And you know what? At that time with the Vita, Ryan, they couldn't support both platforms. They just had to pick one. Now, though, technology is to the point where they don't have to pick one. It can play games just the same. Well, not exactly the same, but it can play the same kind of games between both systems. And they mentioned memory bandwidth. That makes sense that would be the issue, but what resolution do you think the screen would really be on a
1080,
handheld?
1080. Yeah.
1080p. You don't need to do much more than that. Honestly, they could probably, people wouldn't realize it because they would have some kind of upscaling technique used. They could even probably render at 900p and you wouldn't realize it on that screen. So to me, this would make a lot of sense. The technology's there. And if it's not coming out, let's just say 2028, right? They said 3 nanometer is what they'd most likely be shooting for. The CPU side, I assume, would be able to hold up their end of the bargain, and you'd have games come out. And I assume it would have PS6, and then I don't even know, what would you call it?
Naming is interesting. I'm not really sure what you'd name it. It would definitely be, a Vita Portal type scenario where it gets its own name. There's no numbers on this thing, but I would imagine you're looking at probably because they're developing these things in tandem. Like the idea is a software development environment that is very conducive for a studio to, from that point on, ship games on both of these. So you ship an executable that has and this would be where it's so variable. Let's say, by 2028, we're still getting PS5 games, obviously, right? So we're talking about a game that would then have on the latest SDK a PS5 mode, a Pro mode, a PS6 mode, a portable mode. And that's, I think, what we're looking at. And that's how they, juggle this environment that is so different from Vita, where that's its own actual dev environment where studios have to go out of their way to ship games on it. And that's what was so problematic about juggling 4 and Vita at the same time, right? I think we're kind of looking at something that is very conducive to a studio just being able to reliably get their games up and running on this thing, given that it is also a different SoC. It's not like they're going to be packaging a straight up PlayStation 5 SoC in a portable form factor. That's just not happening.
Right. The other, I guess I don't know if it's a benefit or not, but they wouldn't have to do the back touch screen or any weird gimmicks for the handheld.
I hope
they
not.
would be able to, but they'd be able to bypass all of that because it would also have to run, we assume, on the PlayStation 6. So it would be, I figure, a very similar concept to these PC handhelds we're seeing right now, where they're not trying to do anything weird and wacky. It's a handheld. And that's it. Probably much sleeker looking. Like we see what Nintendo did with the Switch 2 versus the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally. It looks sleeker, it's thinner and stuff. You get Sony involved, and we see what they do with, like, the Vita still looks like a current handheld. It's crazy. So fast forward now, 2028, 17 years later or whatever. What are they gonna put out then?
17 years later?
What was that? 2012, 2011, 2012?
Oh yeah, okay, you're right. So okay. No, but I agree. 100%. That's what we always said about like Switch 2 and this next PlayStation, is that they'll make this thing look like the typical handheld that you see from like console manufacturers. These big bulky PC handhelds are just so unwieldy looking, and they like to make these things look nice and sexy. And yeah, I mean, it's also like the wattage is really low, 15.
Well, the Switch 2 is most likely running at 10.
Yeah, that's low as well. But you would assume by the time Sony wants to ship this, and based on any sort of advances we're seeing then, and then whatever reconstruction methods are available, so these games don't even necessarily have to be, let's say, native 900p internally or something. They could be even lower. This thing, I think, would be punching pretty well above its weight when you start to actually consider what it could end up looking like,
Yep. That's the thing that's really cool, is if they can have that wattage lower and use these reconstruction techniques, they could probably make a really nice, sleek, thin looking handheld. That'd be awesome to have that. I don't think you need to go massive. I know you're mentioning the screen size. I don't know if the PlayStation Portal should be the screen size they go for this thing. I don't know. I like the idea of having something that's a little more travel size. I like that idea.
We're just not there though. Like nothing is that small anymore.
I mean, like the ROG Ally is a 7-inch screen.
That's a big size. That's still relative to, like, I guess, the smallest other screens out there. Like, yeah, that's like, I guess, the minimum, I would say.
That's what I figured they would go for, something like that.
So you want it less than 7, basically. You think 7 is fine.
Have a 7-inch 1080p display, pixel dense. Maybe even mini LED or so. They could do something a little more with the. I don't know if you go OLED because, well, no, who knows? Maybe in 2028, technology once again for panels will have advanced even further, and we can do that. But especially because Nintendo might do something with the Switch 2 halfway through the generation. I like Nintendo's approach of saying 120 hertz, VRR, HDR. Yes, we're going to use like an LCD. We're not going to use an OLED, but these sorts of features make more sense for the gamer in mind because it'll benefit you more than, wow, look how deep the blacks are here around the edges or so, like VRR, 120 hertz. That to me makes more sense. But maybe OLED will be set up well with a panel there. Maybe Samsung or whoever can provide it. And they can go that route because the Vita, again, used an OLED way back when. So maybe they tap that again. They say, hey, let's go back to the roots there and do it. But I would love to see Sony enter the market with a handheld, like really try just to see what they can do. Because that bringing that kind of competitive spirit to the handheld market with, I assume, Microsoft being there as well as Nintendo, that could be a lot of fun.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of, I think, very cool options coming up very soon. Well, I guess this thing's still years away, but
we've gone kind of backwards though, because it was just all console. We're moving all console, get the handhelds out of here. Now we're going back to handhelds. And I do wonder, Ryan, in the future, we've talked about this, like the resolution, everyone's kind of happy with 4K. The 8K stuff isn't really, I don't even see a lot of TV manufacturers advertise 8K as much either right now. No one really is thinking we need to get to that resolution now. These low power chips are getting more and more capable to the point where we're getting to that good enough, quote unquote, territory. It almost sounds like the PS6 could be more of a, just based on Mark Cerny's own words, lateral move, in the sense that how much more can you jam in there in terms of a larger GPU and doing all this other stuff, rather than let's work on the AI upscaling stuff that goes into it and the techniques, reconstruction. I almost wonder if these low power chips end up being more of the future for gaming in general.
Probably.
And we're going to have AMD with their new chip soon for the portables.
Yeah, it's. I feel like the name of the game for the last few years in this space has been efficiency. These very low power, highly efficient chips that just get a lot of work done and are really able to deliver the kind of performance that you otherwise wouldn't see in these form factors.
Yeah, the Switch 2, some are thinking that this thing, when you dock it and it's like full blast, might be on its own 30 to 40 watts, which is crazy for like this handheld thing sitting in the dock. So it just makes you wonder that could we get to a point where the PS7 is powered by, way in the future, it's powered by like this AMD low power chip that can just accept like 100 watts, and it's just, they can make the PS6 or 7 small again. I don't know. It's just interesting to think about that.
You're not far off. I would almost think form factor, like, how, because PlayStation 5 is just so unwieldy large. I almost feel like PlayStation 6 even would be a smaller console. It would not be this. Yeah, it would not be this sort of land yacht.
If it's that lateral move, and can you imagine the headlines if it comes out and it's like the PS6 is a 15 teraflop console, and they're like, what? My PS5 Pro is 14.6 or something like that. And
well,
whatever. Imagine those headlines,
dude. No matter what numbers these things are going to have, you're going to have your threads on Era. You're going to have your Reddit titles and YouTube. It's going to be so nightmarish. I feel like it's even worse than it was even just 5 years ago.
There's just going to be, there's a lot more nuance. And I think the next console generation, in terms of discussion of power with the flopflation and stuff.
That's the thing. When you have Mark Cerny having to say shit like that during a seminar, like,
that is really funny.
And the man, like, even he admits, he's like, yeah, I read forums. It's like, oh, you poor soul. I can't believe he reads this shit, right? He reads the most brain dead takes ever put out there. And it's like, you don't know what you're talking about.
You can find his handle on NeoGaf. Search ear shape. See what comes up.
Oh, he's on Era. I'm pretty sure he's on Era. I think he posted one time. I think so.
Oh, he gave himself away. No.
If I remember correctly, I don't know. A lot of them, a lot of industry people lurking.
Seems like a game FAQs guy. That's what he seems like.
Oh man, I would love to see this thing though. Bring it on.
Yep,
Bring it
for it. I
on.
mean, they should do like when they do the handheld. They have the buttons. They should do the actual colors of the different like sacred, like the symbols around the edges.
Do you just want colored PlayStation buttons again?
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
do something fun.
Do something fun. That's their problem. They don't do anything fun anymore.
Be fun. Have fun with the handheld. You don't got to be all like uppity and like professional. Have some fun with it.
Have some fun. What do you think this thing? What do you think it's going to cost, John?
$500 minimum.
No chance in hell.
600? Do you think it's more than that? Wow, 600.
Probably 600. By the time it comes out.
Oh yeah, 20. That's true. 2028. I mean, it might be $600 for a loaf of bread by then. Who knows? But yeah, well, 600. I could see that. That's. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's be a hard sell because I think the PC handhelds will also be more expensive than it at that point. They already are. Like the ROG LAX is $800.
Yeah. And it has to be less than that. It still has to sort of be in that console handheld-esque price point. But
I think it's going to be the same price as whatever their console costs.
That's fair. The thing too is like there's no pressure for this thing to move millions. It would be an extension device. It doesn't necessarily, if any, I mean, pound for pound, they would probably even just lump sum these as far as like when they start reporting install base.
Yes.
Because that would just be, it's just, they're all the same executables. The software runs on both, you know, it's like,
well,
there's no pressure.
Do you think they just call it PlayStation 6 Portable?
Maybe. I mean, like, if that's the other thing too, we don't know if there's like a mandate. Like, let's say by the time they ship this, is there a developer mandate of, you know, you have to support the portable? Because they don't mandate pro support, for example. You know what I mean? You don't have to. You don't have to. I
kind of feel like you'd have to mandate this one.
You probably would have to mandate it, but it's like if they do mandate it, then they can roll with what you're saying. Call it a PlayStation 6 portable.
Sony would probably have to meet them halfway and make sure it has things like enough RAM, because it's like the big complaint for the Xbox Series S. It would probably have to have a comparable CPU, maybe even, I mean, very comparable, I assume, on the CPU side. And then the GPU side is where they can kind of move levers and play around with stuff because it's shooting for 1080p. But you'd have to meet the developers like halfway on that.
Yeah, well, that's why I think by the time it comes out, it probably will have, you know, that sort of compatibility layer in place where it'll play, let's say, every PlayStation 4 game, barring just compatibility issues. Barring compatibility issues, but then the PS5 stuff would have to be patched, and then let's say PS6 onward, the mandate's in place. So it's like
that would be awesome, though, wouldn't it?
That's what I've always thought this thing would be. I mean, I've said for like years, it's like if they ever go back to local play, it's like a portable PS4. It's just by the time they do it, now it looks like PS5 and 6 games.
That'd be cool. Come on, man. You go back to play all those old PS4 games. Only problem, you have them all on disc.
John, I'll still make this point. I think they could do it. It would have to be a goofy workaround of, it's like the PlayStation mobile app where you've got linked consoles to your PSN ID. So if they wanted to put the energy into it, they could certainly do some sort of bullshit authentication, internet tied. I have a disc inserted into my PS6 and that authenticates the launcher on my PS6 portable.
I mean, you see,
I hope.
You see, once again, we're going back to Nintendo, Ryan. You see what they do with the virtual game cards, right?
You mean key cards or you mean the digital loaning thing? Yeah.
Yes. So as you're saying, you're onto something. I feel like you could do something maybe similar with that.
Yeah, that too.
With maybe a disc or something. The problem is, how do you figure out that the disc is yours and not something you just handed to somebody and they're doing the same thing? It has to stay in your PlayStation 6, I assume.
Yeah, there's certainly a way to do this. I don't think it's, you know, impossible, but I would just hope that there's like an actual effort in place to accommodate people that still have a lot of discs. Because there are some that do.
I have some too. They're over there.
I have some.
I have some.
I put this in here. Small update for the FromSoftware Duskbloods IP. They do own it. That's the news. Everyone was wondering if they own it or not. They do own it, but you still made a great point last episode, which is we still don't know if Nintendo like lock that down to like perpetuity, like it'll just never go anywhere or not.
Yeah, it's really hard to say.
Hard to say. What I will add though, I mean, I think it's kind of hard to believe that From would take a deal like that. They really accept like just like well, this game will never go anywhere. Post Elden Ring, because obviously they've done it before. They have done these deals before, but post Elden Ring, where they kind of have a lot more contractual leeway as a for-hire studio, I feel like they'd have to take a pretty big bag to like agree to not put it somewhere else, you know?
Well, if the game's out next year, does make me wonder how long it's actually been in development for.
Yeah.
So probably how long are we going back for this contract?
That's fair. That's fair. That's very fair. Well, when did Nintendo get in too, right?
Yeah, because this could have even been something they were discussing with them about the current Switch. Why don't we do a game for that? And they're like, well, how about we need a little more? How about we shoot for next gen or something? So it's hard to say. I mean, look, Elden Ring, because you're making a good point. Elden Ring, once they put that out, it's like we can do whatever we want. You guys come to us kind of stuff. That was 2022. Let's say this thing went into development 3.5 years ago. That would have been just before Elden Ring came out anyway. So this could have been a deal or something in the works, before then, when they can basically do what they want. So
that's fair. It's a valid point. Valid point. Although we do know they own the IP, so there is that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Next up, I have the Xbox Games Showcase plus the Outer Worlds 2 Direct confirmed. That's Sunday, June 8th. It's important to clarify this for any PlayStation owners because, we now understand that Microsoft pretty much said point blank, we're putting logos on everything. So you can finally watch their shows. Don't have to worry about like, oh, is that coming? Let me check the developer site. Let me look for a press release. No. If it's coming to PlayStation, you can watch it live and find out right then and there.
Put that showcase on the calendar, Xbox Showcase.
Yeah, and you kind of have to because they own a shitload of studios.
Yeah, but you're going to see that PlayStation logo everywhere. They're all logos will be there. PlayStation, Nintendo, they'll just throw them all over everything.
Now, let me ask you this, John. Is this the show where they make a PlayStation specific announcement? As in it's a trailer that's only applicable to PS5 owners, like that Gears collection, the Halo collection, you know what I mean? Like these games are already on Xbox, but is this a showcase where they make a PlayStation specific reveal?
I think so. And I think it's going to be, hey, we're going to do like Halo, for example. To me, if you're going to do that and it's Master Chief, you got to do it the right way. You can't just show up on Twitter one day and be like, hey, Master Chief Collection, go to PlayStation, go to Switch 2, and then just leave. You can't do that. You got to get up on stage or in front of the camera and you got to own it. You got to show them and be like, look, we're moving. Master Chief's going to the blue and red console, okay?
Or you just start up like, oh.
Phil's got to look dead center in that camera and say it.
That's a little too kinky. I don't know if
he's got to just let him know, hey, look, it's happening, okay?
He said Phil has to look me. Phil has to look me in the eyes and say,
gotta look dead center of that camera and tell everybody out there that it's happening. I think they're gonna have plenty of those kind of announcements. Yes, it's plenty. You know what they're doing now. I think they're doing a couple. I think a couple. You said I wouldn't be shocked if the Gears collection got announced. Although the Gears collection, I don't know. Maybe they will put that on. I mean, it's already there, but these would be kind of like remaster remakes for the Xbox as well. So maybe not.
Yeah. But that's fair.
Halo, though, yes, that's one I think would be probably the thing they'd line up for this. So it's gonna be weird. They're not doing the Xbox Fan Fest thing. People have speculated that having a live crowd there would be a bad idea if they are indeed just saying these things are going to PlayStation. I saw that. I thought that was funny.
Imagine they do the Xbox Fan Fest and they make a PlayStation announcement. Oh, yeah.
People have wondered if that's the case. And I'm like, it sounds ridiculous, but it also wouldn't surprise me if that's why they're not doing it.
That's fair. That is definitely fair. Oh, excuse me. You mentioned this too at the top of the show. That Oblivion remake's dropping like fucking what next week?
Yes, sir.
How are they doing it? It's just going to be a press release. What are they doing?
This is at the end of the Elder Scrolls Online anniversary or something. That's next week. I kind of think they're just going to announce it. I think it's just going to be on Twitter. Here's the
that's
trailer.
it.
Guess what? It's out right now. And you go, what? What?
That's I don't know if I don't, Oblivion's kind of a big deal. I almost would have like been totally fine with that being like during some kind of like live stream or something, you know?
That's what I'm saying. I think they had, maybe they're doing a live stream for the anniversary of ESO at Shows Online, and that's where it's happening. I don't know. It's the whole thing just feels off to do it this way. They could have saved that for the June showcase, and it's their part of their second half of the year. For some reason, it has to come out next week. You can leave the anniversary aside because you could announce it next week and it's out in a few months. No, they're just dropping it in. And it's like, it's already been a pretty packed first half of 2025 for Microsoft. This, by the way, coming from a company who had to delay Avowed out of last year into this year because there were just too many games then. And now here comes all this stuff, and they decide, nope, now we got to drop Oblivion in there too. In between, Indiana Jones on the PS5 and Forza Horizon on the PS5.
Yeah.
Really cool though. It actually leaked, and there's some images, and I think it looks good.
Indeed, it did leak. You know what surprised me? Everyone looked at the leaks and they're like, "Oh my god, it's real!" It's like, well, I don't know. It seemed like we were getting like way too many rumors about that. Like,
Nate said it. So.
Seemed like it seemed like it was happening. You know,
Nate's been on a roll recently, so when he says something, it's probably worth just going with it at this point.
Nate's been a goddamn prophet. I don't know what kind of shit this man's been on lately, but he says something. He's probably not just throwing it out there. Let's just put it that way.
He's on it.
Next up, we have the PlayStation concert cancellations. So if you remember, PlayStation announced a bunch of like a concert tour. So you have a bunch of composers from various SIE games, and they were going to do a tour. And now some dates are getting canceled in Poland, Sweden, Austria, Hungary, Denmark, and a lot of these shows are either getting refunded and moved, or they're just straight up canceled due to unforeseen reasons. So I had a few people reach out about this. I would think it's just because of low ticket sales. I'm not much of a concert expert, but anytime I hear about this, it's just like the artist or the venue, like they're just not selling enough seats.
Not worth showing up, yeah.
That sucks. That means if you're in Poland, Sweden, Austria, Hungary, or Denmark, you don't get to listen to God of War and Horizon and, you know, Death Stranding. All those good soundtracks. It's a bummer.
Are you going to concert for any of these gaming tracks?
I'm going to go to that DS2 one.
Okay.
Yeah. Go to that DS2 one. The Final Fantasy one was here in Buffalo not that long ago. I wanted to go to that. I did not make it out there though. The Rebirth Orchestra, whatever it was called. There was that. Yeah. Next up, we have Shuhei Yoshida doing more talking. This man loves to talk. In fact, it seems like he's just been writing a bunch of things in a diary, waiting to finally spew all this stuff after he left SIE. This one is about him being apparently too crazy to be the CEO of SIE. So over on Stephen Totillo's newsletter Game File, he had a bunch of developers submit questions to each other. So it was kind of this like piece where, you know, all these different studio heads got to talk to each other. The Virtuo CEO asked Shuhei Yoshida, SIE's former head of Indies and the former head of Worldwide Studios, why was he not the boss of SIE today? Yoshida said it's because he didn't think like a suit, and they probably didn't trust him to make the best business decisions. He said, and I quote, I always wanted to do something interesting, you know, something new or innovative and never done before that may become the great thing in the future kind of thing. Look at all the heads of SIE in the past. Other than Ken Kutaragi, he was crazy, right? So he did something totally crazy. But after that, Kaz, Andrew, Jim Ryan, they were all business people, right? So there must be a reason for that. So he thinks that he was just a little bit too crazy to be the CEO of SIE. Found that very interesting, given that I'll tell you this, John, I never would have thought I'd peg Shuhei as the kind of guy that would even want to lead SIE.
Yeah, it's that separation of business versus business person for numbers and everything versus just being a creative and trying to figure out if that God of War 2018 looks good or not and being angry at it and leaving. No, that's the thing. It's what would he have greenlit when it's not necessarily about the business aspect, and when you're at the top and you're making the decisions, you'll let some through that you probably shouldn't. So in his mind, he's like, he really probably is the kind of guy who's like, I just want to go do the indie stuff because no, it's low risk, yes, but it's also more creative.
I always thought like the indie role was perfect for him. He loved indies. I never would have expected. I'm sure other people thought this way. I never would have thought he would lead all of SIE. He just didn't peg me as that kind of guy. So I'm not sure. I mean, he's not even saying that he wanted to do it. He's just saying like, oh, I don't think like a suit. So I probably was never going to get the job. But it was interesting to hear him say that, especially how he referenced Ken Kutaragi and he said, other than Ken, everyone else was a suit. And that's true with Ken. Ken was kind of batshit insane. The father of PlayStation made some pretty catastrophic decisions for PlayStation. A lot of them mostly PlayStation 3. So maybe there's a reason why SIE likes to favor a lot of the SVP roles and the finance people and business people going into the leadership roles. But arguably Andrew, Kaz, I think they had great generations under their belt. Jim was the one that people were pretty upset about, but they were all pretty businessy behind the scenes.
Jim was definitely the business one though, behind the scenes, and
he was the most business out of them all, or at least from a public facing point of view. We're getting into some of the video game adaptation news here. So the Death Stranding movie has a director confirmed. So according to Deadline, the A24 Death Stranding movie will be directed by the award-winning writer and director of Pig, Michael Sarnowski. He also recently did A Quiet Place Day One. So Death Stranding movie moving right along. And then we also have Astrobot. An Astrobot movie is being considered. Speaking with Variety, the head of PS Productions, Asad Kizilbash, said, and I quote, "One thing I would say is you have to strike a balance between establishing it as a video game property first and getting it out there, establishing an audience, establishing a fan base. In the conversations I've had with our film studio, it's important, and that makes it less risky for them, is when there's an established audience. And so when you have a brand new IP, it may not have an established audience." The article went on to mention that Astrobot is indeed a game that Kizilbash is very much considering to being added to the potential lineup of adaptations. So our little boy Astrobot may be hitting the big screen, John.
Yeah, the kids want this. The kids want this bad.
You think so?
The movie. No, my kids want this bad.
Your kids.
Movie. Yes, they really want the Astrobot movie.
Did you bring it up to them?
Or they asked me if there's going to be an Astrobot movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they asked me if there's going to be an Astrobot movie. So they're like Mario movie. They went and saw the Minecraft movie this past weekend. So they're still playing Astrobot a lot. They're playing Astrobot and they're playing Sackboy: Big Adventure. But they want the Astrobot movie. They want it bad.
Maybe there's something to it. My initial thought with this was like cool, but like too soon. I think you got to do a few more Astrobot games,
One more good one. I mean, this last one was good, but like one more just to establish it as like that 3D platformer, just even that mascot for Sony.
Yeah.
I still think it's a good mascot for Sony for the general audience. I do. I think it can work.
I mean,
very marketable.
He found his place for sure. I would honestly say like a movie's maybe too soon. Do one or two more games, get them out there a little bit more. It's still pretty telling when Astro wins so many Game of the Year awards. And even like a wider, let's say still core audience, not even like casual gamers, so to speak. It's dumb terminology, but I think you know what I mean. Even the sort of core audience, you saw a lot of pretty big names out there go, how did Astrobot win? How did Rebirth not get it? How did Fantasio not, you know what I mean? Like Astro still has some work to do to get his name out there. I would say a few more, which I could also mention Astrobot picked up 5 awards at the BAFTAs. Best animation, audio achievement, family, game design, and best game.
I wonder if they could pair together a movie release and then a game release within a year of each other for Astrobot. Then they could go that route as well.
You would think that actually might be more feasible than usual because the Astrobot, this particular game had like a 3-year dev cycle. It's not really like the hardest thing to maybe align than you would think,
Right. Yeah, you could do that. You could get like the big marketing for Astrobot in the movie theater with like the Astrobot popcorn and the drink and everything. Yeah, you could do all that.
The Astrobot popcorn. What is
It's a big deal.
What does the popcorn bucket look like for him?
I don't know. I mean, really nowadays, from what I see, it's usually just the bag with like the marketing on it. It's not even fancy anymore. I think the last one I remember was the Deadpool movie stuff with Wolverine, and the other, like, their heads were like the buckets. Okay. Yeah, otherwise, it's just here's a bag and Astrobots on it.
Okay. It could be but it's got to be like a premium bucket. It could be his carcass, so there's no head. You reach into his torso and pull out the popcorn, which is a reference to the alternate ending for Astrobot. Not to spoil, no spoilers, but that is like kind of an alternate ending.
I like it. I'd go see the movie.
I would too. Especially because they might keep it in line with the VIP bots. You might see some PlayStation bots.
The Minions stuff works really well. The Minions movie and everything, and I think there's a good market for Astro. I think they could do it. I
think what would infuriate me is like if they had to put like a human character in it.
Oh, that would bother you.
Oh, 100%. Get the fuck out of here. This is about the robots.
Yeah. That would be interesting. I wonder how they would overcome that. Because the robots aren't talking or anything.
Yeah. Well, does Wall-E ever talk? Did Wall-E ever talk in that movie?
No, really. I mean, I think he would like harmonically, like through like a harmonica, say like a word that you can kind of understand, but it wasn't like just talking back and forth. No.
Because I don't think I ever saw Wall-E, but like that's the one thing my mind immediately went to. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever heard that robot utter a word. So maybe they could do that. John, you know what's funny? We didn't even settle on what we were planning on doing here. I would assume what we could do is go into PSX, go and give it to you. And then after that, we'll talk about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 1.
I like it. Okay.
Now, you did watch it, right?
I did.
Very good. Then we will jump right into PSX, go and give it to you. The part of the show where we go over some PlayStation nostalgia or maybe a cool little factoid, weird spot in PlayStation history, maybe something the children didn't know about PlayStation. And because The Last of Us HBO is popping off right now, I wanted to hit us with a little Last of Us anecdote here, which is The Last of Us was announced back in December of 2011 at the Spike Video Game Awards, but it did almost kind of leak out in a sense because we knew about the game prior to the more formal reveal, but there were always a lot of rumors surrounding what the game is and what studio was developing it. However, there was an Easter egg in Uncharted 3, which came out in November of 2011, which in the early sequence bar fight, after you clear that area, you could walk up to the countertop and there's a newspaper on the countertop. And on that newspaper, it said, scientists are still struggling to understand deadly fungus. Naughty Dog just put that in there. Point blank. If I recall correctly, they meant to take it out, I think, or they didn't.
Oh, really?
This is where it's a little fuzzy. I did double check just see what I could find last minute. I almost am certain they maybe were like worried about people seeing that and the game leaking before they could do the Spike ceremony. But basically, that was like a little Easter egg in Uncharted 3 that they were like nervous about. But they did put a very purposeful Easter egg in there for The Last of Us. And it was a big deal when they did eventually show it off at the Spike Video Game Awards.
Those are the fun. I mean, that stuff like that's just fun, like not quite knowing, but it's there. It's an Easter egg, and them linking the universes together like that. That's the fun stuff in gaming that I feel like we don't get that as much, do we?
I don't know. I feel like there could maybe be an example, but I'm certainly not remembering any off the top of my head. What I recall about this being so noteworthy too is that, this was when Naughty Dog split off into two teams. So it was like a really surprising thing for everybody when it's like, well, it can't be Naughty Dog because they just did Uncharted 3. Surely they're not ready to show off another game, but it's like, no, behind the scenes, they veered off two teams, one doing U3, one doing The Last of Us. And so they were able to make a reveal, and it was a big deal, it was a new IP for them too.
That was a big pivot for them too, because they went from like the teen rated Uncharted stuff. That doesn't take itself seriously all the time. That is like super grisly, serious, violent Last of Us, and it's like, whoa, okay, Naughty Dog, jeez. Like I remember some of the early stuff they showed for that was like ultra like violent and surreal. So that was a bit of a shock to the system for that. But you're right, interesting with that newspaper clipping that like I just even double checked again, and it was kind of like low resolution because I was like, how did that look on the PS3? Because I played it on the back compat for the collection, and everything's just cleaner looking there.
Yeah,
you don't necessarily remember how it looked on the PS3 unless you actually fire up a PS3, go all the way back through it. Look, it looks kind of low resolution here in this YouTube video that they're showing. So
I was gonna say, did you find the video where it's like genuinely 13 years old, and it is like in that it's an actual time capsule, like gamers back then, like, yo, look what I found. What does this mean? Yeah, it was cool.
That's fun. Like stuff like that's just really fun because it was that unknown. Like people are just speculating, trying to figure it out, and it feels like now we know everything immediately. So even if there is some speculation or people trying to figure this out, there's question marks. For example, someone on Insider Gaming or whatever, they'll end up just finding out and just dropping it the next day. Oh, this is what this was or something, So that just, I felt like hung around for a while and people were just going back and forth on what it was.
Yeah, it's fun. I can't think of anything that like might have happened recently, but that one was like really cool back then. And that bar scene's pretty early in the game too, if I remember correctly. So it doesn't even take that long to get to.
Well, who knows? Maybe there's something in The Last of Us we don't know about that links it to Intergalactic.
Hey. Good point.
I mean, Last of Us Part 2 Left Behind? Maybe somewhere in there's newspaper clipping about the planet that they're going to Intergalactic.
Well, John, with that in mind, want to talk about this first episode?
Yes. We had the Last of Us Season 2, Episode 1 kicked off.
I guess this would be the point where we warn people. Spoiler, we saw it. We'll talk about the whole thing. I would also presume we will talk under the context of you have played the second game. So we'll have part 2 spoilers in here as well.
Yes. Otherwise, though, the podcast would be effectively done for listeners when it comes to the gaming stuff and all the news and everything we've discussed.
Yes.
So if that is the case, thank you for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to the Spawncast channel here and check us out on Spotify, iTunes, all of that. Give us a like there, maybe even a review. So thanks everyone for joining us there. But now we will be going into The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 1. What's the title of this, actually?
The title of the episode?
Yeah. What was the title of the episode?
You know what's fun? I just watched like a bunch of things about it last night and I still forgot what it's called. I'm trying to remember. Damn it.
It's okay, here it is. Season 2, Future Days.
God damn it. I knew it was Days. Future Days, yep.
Future Days.
Future Days. About an hour long. What'd you think?
I mean, the thing is, these first episodes, it's always so hard because it's the setup for events that we know are coming and that we're really looking forward to see how it translates over to a series like this. But I think for the most part, it was a good setup. It was. They did reenact some of the scenes from the game almost 1-to-1.
Very season one.
Like the dance that Ellie was at, and like even the camera angles and stuff with her and Dina, and that was as 1-to-1, I think, as I've seen at all for this entire thing.
It's about as 1-for-1 as the initial argument they had in the first game, where, well, in the game Ellie had left Jackson. In the show, it just takes place in Jackson, but that sort of like, I'm not your dad argument, that was like line for line, basically. And the dances, I think the dance scene mirrors that perfectly of, they sort of knew they had something and they didn't really want to touch it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's where we start getting into like the lines for gaming and cinema in general have blurred so much over the last 10 years that you can legitimately just reenact that and it works fine.
Mhm.
If you've never played the game and this is the first time you're seeing it on this TV series and you did not know that that was from a game, like that's how well it works. So there's really no reason to change it there. So the thing that's kind of messing with me right now, Ryan, is I'm not really convinced with Abby yet.
Well, that's the thing I guess we can note is that it was, I think, pretty expected that they were going to move the timeline around a bit. So, yeah, very much. We got Abby episode 1, at least is more of a, I mean, you see Abby pretty early in the second game, obviously, but you sort of get this motive and like in a way that the game didn't give you.
Right.
You get a somewhat half explained motive of here's the aftermath of Boston and what happened at the hospital. You've got these fireflies and this would have been, they didn't do the time jump yet. So you're seeing them like right after Boston. So you're seeing Abby and crew before they go to Seattle. And, you're finding out immediately like, oh, we have to find this guy and we have to kill them. Now I think if you didn't play the game, of course, you're going to sit there and watch and go, okay, we know why. And you don't get that sort of larger reveal until maybe later in this particular season. I would imagine they're going to give the Jerry reveal maybe like much later. So you don't find out the actual connection to, why Abby would be so motivated, but you do get this sort of like at least understanding of why the crew did what they did versus part 2, where you just get this killing and you have no goddamn
Right.
idea who these people are at all.
Yeah, they really wanted to I feel like they wanted to set this up as soon as possible for the viewing audience for this series, as opposed, as you mentioned, the killing and then subsequent you trying to figure out why all this happened. Maybe just it works better as a more interactive game versus seeing it, I guess, as a viewer and then having to follow along from there. I don't know. Maybe I think it would be a little too confusing. I'm not sure.
So my thought process going into this, and I think after sitting on it for a little bit now, I kind of agree with where they're going. Obviously, it will be a toss up as the show progresses, but if you were to like, let's say, do it 1-for-1 with the game, that means like season 3 is going to be like all Abby. I'm not sure if that really works for television and that you wait this long and then by the time you get to season 3 and there's like no Ellie at all. You know what I mean? I think you kind of have to sort of intersperse them a little bit earlier and get some motives rolling versus the game where, you will be playing the portion where you're Abby, but the whole point early on with fucking headset's beeping, Jesus. The point with Ellie initially when you see the death is like you're so motivated to find out what the hell's going on, and that you can't really replicate that in the show, I find.
Right. No, I get that. The thing right now is it looks like that their crew, Abby and them, of course, are about to, I guess, infiltrate and attack the town the way they're shaping it up.
Right. That's probably going to take place, I would assume, episode 2. Like the moment's going to happen episode 2.
So okay, as you're changing your headset out here, or you're plugging it in,
just plugging it in.
You think the big moment's about to happen next episode?
I think it's so I mean, the ending of episode 1 showed that there's clearly a horde that's going to attack Jackson. We saw that in the trailer. Yes. So, because the difference the show makes is that the sort of tendrils, the spores, not spores, they're almost like roots, but like these tendrils that have a horde mentality. So if that triggers infected from a distance, could find out where that's coming from and go attack. So I think it's clear that episode 2 is going to be that horde scene, but maybe it's all going to sort of come to a head in that, the crew shows up, the Abby crew, mind you. Let's say you have that sequence where it's very similar to the game and that Jackson doesn't know who these people are. They're always willing to help. So the Abby crew and Jackson fend off. They make it out of there alive, but then the crew can get Joel alone, do what they need to do, and leave.
Do you think there's any possible way that they do like a final destination where everyone is expecting this to happen to Joel, but they do a bit of a fake out and they don't do the killing right away? It make it look like it's going to happen, but then he gets saved or something and everyone's just like, whoa, what in the world? Is he not is that not going to happen here? And then like 2 episodes later, it happens.
I think it's happening next episode.
Okay, next maybe they close out the episode.
Like on it or right before it, and then
like, what's up? 4, boom, end of credits.
I'm not sure what to expect. I would assume it will be pretty brutal. That's also the point that they made firm in this initial episode, is that Abby wants it done slowly. It's. I think they're going for the same emotional impact. So I would think it's gonna. I would think it's gonna happen. I did also want to touch on. So we also got some combat, which I like. Saw a stalker. Which was cool.
Yeah, that's true, because they made it out like because Ellie and Dina were talking to like their counsel, mentioning that it wasn't like a typical one. It was like kind of plotting and it seemed like it was more alive, you could say, and it was thinking. And I don't know if it's almost like they're alluding to that being a pretty big thing for this, because they take liberties. We saw it with the last season where they really into the fungus stuff, and at times it was a little strange the way that they did it. But I mean, it's not going to be exactly 1-to-1 as we mentioned. I almost wonder if that's going to be a bit more of a, like the stalker thing is going to be a bit more of a important part of the season.
Yeah, it struck me as a little bit weird. I mean, like, because the stalkers do that in the games, but I don't know. Like, as far as I understand the lore, like a stalker is between a runner and a clicker. So, it's like eventually they're going to become clickers, but the show almost propped it up in a way where it's like, this is an evolutionary stage beyond where they were prior, but like at least game lore wise, it's actually a half step. And you see stalkers in the first game and the second game. So I'm not sure where they're going with that, but I did I really liked that scene in that we saw what is a 5-year jump of Ellie and Dina, who are, they're young, sure, but they're trying to prove themselves and trying to, act as though they're adults, because they're getting to that point where they feel like they should be adults and having adult responsibilities. And so they, Ellie goes and kills a clicker like it's a typical Sunday for her. And I really liked how they played that out. And they, if you played the games, they kept all the little Easter eggs in there, just as it was in part 2. So so far I really like how it's like the same methodology from the first season. They're taking liberties, but if you played the games, everything kind of is still there beat for beat.
They are playing up the strained relationship quite a bit too, between Ellie and Joel, with Ellie being that rebellious teenage kind of character. And I mean, that's again how we know the game went. That's very important for this whole thing. Things not said, that kind of stuff. So that all is playing up exactly how I figured it would too there. But the thing that's still just getting me, Ryan, and it's not just me, I see it online too, is the 2 main characters we're looking at, Abby and Ellie here. The portrayals of them just are very far removed, I'd say, from the game. And looking at it, it looks almost like hard to believe at times. Abby looks very small.
Yeah, she's small.
She's very small, to where it's like, not that like if you caught somebody and just started beating them with a golf club, like, yeah, you could obviously kill them, but it's just Abby was very imposing in the game. And it's almost like because Ellie, the actor there was like, it's just smaller, that Abby then also needs to be smaller. But now it looks like Abby is too small.
Maybe the sort of idea they're going with is to keep them on maybe a level playing field, because it's like they're real people in this case, so that there's a sort of maybe trying to size them up. I mean, what I found noteworthy is like the initial scene we see with Ellie, and that she's fighting somebody that's so much bigger than her.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like a very clear struggle of like, yeah, she made it out, like she got the guy to tap out or whatever, but he's like, oh no, I pulled back. She's upset obviously, because she's, don't tell him to pull back. I want the full experience or whatever, but he's like, he would have knocked your ass out otherwise,
Right.
And maybe that's sort of propping it up as like, we're trying to get it maybe a little bit more grounded versus the how we approached it with the games, where I've heard Craig explain it. I mean, it makes sense in that, like, oh, for the game, you want to have a certain imposing character that feels and plays different, and that's maybe a lot of what went into creating Abby for the game. But in this case, they just didn't feel that that was necessary this time around.
Yeah, I see so many people who are like, Bella Ramsey is an odd portrayal of Ellie. Abby looks too small. So I don't know if it's just people who played, because I do wonder if it's someone out there who hasn't played the games, how like the casting has been for them versus all of us pretty much, who are immediately like, okay, this is the character from the game. How do they compare to the person playing them here?
Mm-hmm.
In the show, because I see it mostly from people who are very familiar with the game, who are just not clicking with the choices for the cast.
I think I don't know if it's like a matter of like wanting them to just look so much like the game, or
Sure.
if it's maybe just that actual genuine concern of like, I'm just not sold on it. But I don't know. I mean, I did like look at the Abby crew, and I'm like, in a way, I almost couldn't pinpoint who is who. Like, some looked very obvious, like Tati Gabrielle looked very much like Nora. Like, but like,
Mm-hmm.
Owen wasn't immediately obvious to me, which maybe sounds stupid on my part, but I'm like, oh yeah, that's Owen. So I don't know if it's like getting too hung up on like they have to look really close to the game characters or not.
Well, like for example, Abby in the game is just much taller than Caitlin Deaver.
Deaver, yeah. Well, yeah, she's so much taller and imposing, you know.
Yeah, it's just Abby's like 5'8" or 5'9" or something, and she's like 160 or 170 pounds or something.
Yeah.
And then you have little Caitlin Deaver here, who's like, I want him dead slowly. It's like, okay. So that's the thing. They're gonna have to figure out a way to make this feel more imposing. Camera angles, setups, even just like a viciousness. Like if she just starts like just annihilating with the golf club, I could be like, okay, all right, geez, all right. There's like the crazy side to her or something violent side there. But just because we've only seen them apart and in these more not necessarily calm settings, because as you mentioned, we just saw Ellie and Dina in some high tension situations here. But I need to see how they do this with Abby, I think, when they start running into each other. Because we know they're going to run into each other. There's going to be some back and forth, some fights, violence, everything. I just need to see how that all works with the current cast on screen.
Maybe they want it to look like more of a struggle. You know, again, like maybe it's a conscious choice of wanting somebody that really flanks Ellie in all proportions to where it feels more like a 50-50 instead of, you know, wanting Ellie to feel as though she's up against something that's so much more imposing. Maybe they want it to be a little bit more level.
I can see that. Yeah. I mean, but even in the game, Abby just like towered over Ellie as well. So they could have gone like a little even bigger in general and just made it like, because obviously going through the game, they put Abby in a certain situation where Ellie was able to just literally beat her up at the end.
Yeah.
But we can all look at that and be like, probably wouldn't have happened if it wasn't that certain situation or condition that Abby was in.
Right. Yeah. The absolute ending. We might not even see that scene till like this apparent fourth season that may or may not
Oh, it
happen.
might not be for like 4 years or something. Yeah. So
yeah.
maybe they'll just, I don't know. I don't think they're getting any bigger actually, but I don't think that's going to happen. Because you think about the age of Abby and Ellie in the game, and like the cast here is like Caitlin Evers, I think is like 28 or something.
Well, it's also, I guess, important to note that they likely filmed a lot of season 3 doing 2. You know, so it's
That's
like
a good point. That's a good point.
I would hope that season 3 will be able to be turned around a lot faster. They've already confirmed it, so we know it's coming. And again, like the one of the HBO representatives said, like, oh, I think it's likely a season 4 will happen. I would assume the season 4 is like the Santa Barbara portion, which Santa Barbara is like that portion of the game. That's like the final act. It's not super long, but ironically, that would be the one scenario where the show would spend a lot more time telling the story than the game did, because the Santa Barbara portion really is like, I think 3 something hours. It's not that long. So, I mean, if that's how they're looking to break it up, then you've got at least 2 seasons of these two back and forth for quite a bit.
I was trying to figure out what the obvious the break point is for the end of this season to go to then the third, like what the cliffhanger ending is. And to me, it just keeps coming back to when Ellie and Abby kind of clash for the first time
in the theater. Yeah.
And Abby just like obliterates her basically and then leaves. It feels like that would be the obvious break point there because people are dying, getting shot, beating up, the whole thing. Tensions, big climax and stuff, and then it just kind of cuts from there. That seems like it makes sense. I figure.
I would think it's going to build up to the theater, and within that same episode, you'll get that sort of reveal of like, well, this is why Abby is so motivated beyond maybe what people were initially thinking. Because you know, if somebody didn't play the games, they already have an idea on episode 1. Oh, these people were Fireflies and they are cleaning up the whole Boston mess. So yeah, we know why they're going after the crew, but I don't think you're going to get the Jerry reveal until maybe that episode, and then it builds up to the theater fight.
So this episode, 5.3 million viewers. That is up 13% from the season 1 premiere.
Pretty good.
Yep, good numbers. Seems like that would be on track for a season 4 renewal then, if they are going to do that, which, I mean, there's still plenty that they can get because, you know, they draw it out with flashbacks and more background and composition and stuff. So like that seems like something they can, I mean, they made a whole episode out of Bill's backstory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they can do a lot of stuff.
It would seem as though they might do that again with Eugene. So Gail's husband, which that was like that was a new thing that they did. The new sort of liberty they took was like, oh, Joel's in therapy. You know, and you start to see more of that tension between him and Ellie and how he's trying to reconcile with that. What was also interesting too, like the part 2 game set this up a bit. You don't really ever see it, but you see a little bit of that relationship between Dina and Joel, and that Dina's trying to get close to Joel, and they've got a slight relationship, which could just be her trying to mend their existing, well, Joel and Ellie's relationship, because it's already strained at that point, but she's also trying to get closer to Ellie. So she does that through Joel. And so I like a lot of the sort of groundwork they laid out as far as these extra bits that the game didn't have. Also, God, I loved Isabella. She nailed Dina.
Like, yeah. No, that's the casting that everyone's like, oh, that makes sense. That was good. That works.
She killed it. It was just so bubbly and happy, and you know that her smile lights up the room, and you can see how Ellie's just so infatuated with her, but you know, just isn't really fully there to make that first move. But Isabella's the kind that would do it, and it was. I think the dance scene really was so goddamn good. That shit played out perfectly.
Yeah. Like I said, it was a good start. Good start to the season. But I think there's going to be some pretty big episodes coming up, and that's what I'm mostly looking forward to. I think this has just established some of the characters to the audience now, the viewers, really, you'd say. We're ready for the season to get really moving here soon. Maybe episode 2 when they go golfing. We'll see. Is it going to blow your mind, though, if someone else dies at the hand of the golf club and that final destination thing kicks off and Joel is still around? Will that really... I feel like that would actually get people really watching because the viewers wouldn't know. We'd be like, hold on a minute. What is going on right now? I have to watch the next episode.
I mean, yeah, I think it's going to be what we expect. The thing that I'm curious about is we know they're going to move the timeline around, obviously, but it's like how much of that is going to be like what key points are going to be woven in, and you know, how do they sort of balance that between Ellie's side and Abby's side? Because like, again, the part 2 game is structured in such a way where you're spending a lot of time with Ellie, then a lot with Abby. Now we know that's going to be split up a lot. So I'm more curious as to where that's going to go, how that's going to look.
That's true. I don't know. Interesting stuff. I'm curious to see how they adapt this thing. So
we will see.
First episode, though. Are we? So that means that the next time we come back, we'll have 2 new episodes.
Yeah, I think given how we're bi-weekly, we'll probably run into some like double episode reviews at that point. So
okay, that'll work. That'll work
pretty fast.
Oh, that'll work. Cool. All right. Well, guess that's everything. All right. We good?
think we cleaned up house pretty good here, John.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thanks everyone for joining us. If you stayed for the Last of Us conversation, we appreciate it. We'll be talking about the other episode. So if you have not already decided to check it out, I recommend it. The first season was good. Second season, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun as well. So go check it out so you can be part of the conversations we have here. Of course, let us know what you think down below in the comments. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks for Click R3. We'll see you guys then.